Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. We welcome you, whatever time and wherever in the world you are listening. We are pleased you have found us. You are now listening to Inside the Bunghole, a podcast taking you on a journey through wine. Together, we will learn more about this wonderful elixir of life. So raise your glass to welcome your hosts and partners in wine, Pam and James. You are now Inside the Bunghole.
Guess what? It's another episode of Inside the Bunghole.
Very good. James, Armand,
And our
parents,
and our mystery guest.
guest. Our mystery guest is a female winemaker. She has worked her ass off to get where she is. We are welcoming today Natalie Bath from Rudd Estates. Thank you.
And that's Rudd.
Rudd. R-U-D-D. Correct.
Double Z.
Double D. Double D's. So anyway, we're going to let that one go. Welcome, Natalie.
Well,
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Aw, aren't you sweet? Well, let's find out, first of all, just how you got into wine and what the passion's all about.
Well, long story short, I actually grew up in the small town of St. Helena in the Napa Valley. One of the weird local folk is what I say. And I did not appreciate it at all, like any disgruntled teenager. And I found myself with a wonderful political science degree, going to be a lawyer. And I was coming home to study for my LSATs and obviously needed to make a little bit of money. And so I found myself working at a small French restaurant in Napa called Angel, where I started getting introduced. Yes. The best bar, the best patio.
Yes, beautiful.
Female-owned Bettina. She's fabulous. And I started learning more about wines, particularly more European wines. And then I knew that I had a short window before really having to get serious again. And so I worked a harvest, which was pretty typical, I would say, with regards to just, making money in a quick, short period of time and then hitting
Napa Valley.
in Napa Valley. And so I worked at Etude in 2010, right when Tony Soter was selling it. And for lack of a better way of putting it, I fell in love. There was something just incredibly fascinating to me that I could make something with my hands and then taste it later on. That I was almost putting my whole blood, sweat, and tears literally into a bottle that would then be enjoyed by people somewhere in the world. And I couldn't get over that. And beyond that is I met the most incredible people. Interns come from all over the world. And so you're immediately exposed to people's, different cultures, different languages. And it was fascinating to me. And so I told myself I could do one more and then I would get serious. And so
What are your folks thinking of this time?
they were, I think, just hoping for the best at that point. I think deep down they were kind of shocked I wanted to be a lawyer.
Right.
But they never wanted to push anything on me that wasn't, my choice. And so I think they were kind of letting me ride this little crazy train detour.
Were they wine drinkers? Were they around wine when you were a kid?
Yeah, I definitely grew up almost in that European mindset where as long as I wasn't driving anywhere or going anywhere, I got to have a little bit of wine at dinner. It was part of the meal. It was just normal. So, yeah, it's definitely been a part of my life a very long time.
But being an attorney, slipping away.
Slipping away slowly but surely.
You could see it.
Reading off.
Drifting into the detergent.
In the wine.
In the vineyards.
So you go to the next harvest.
I go down to New Zealand and I end up in the Blenheim Marlborough area where
How did you pick New Zealand?
So you think about it, I had just done a Northern Hemisphere harvest and you could quickly do a back-to-back.
Yeah.
So it made sense to me in my head that I would go to New Zealand because they speak the same language. It would be a little bit, of an easier transition. And so I sent
out. Make bitchin' wines.
They make incredible wines and the nicest people, everything about it. But I just sent out my resume to every winery in New Zealand, just, hoping someone would reach back out. And I ended up at Villa Maria, obviously a very large scale winery. There were 25 interns during the day, 25 at night. You just worked 7 days a week, 12-hour shifts. And again, it was the most incredible experience. I never thought I needed to see Sauvignon Blanc ever again after that, but insert foot into mouth because now I make Sauvignon Blanc. But I think if I hadn't run out of money and had a job opportunity when I got back, I would have stayed there 100%.
Boy. Are wineries, like a lot of like wine clubs, they sometimes invite wine club members to a harvest, or is that it's
Oh yeah, it's definitely a thing. We actually encourage people to come experience everything from what happens during the actual harvest or picking of the grapes to the sorting process.
Is it possible to get in the way?
I mean,
For that
yes, we definitely draw some boundaries is what I will say, more from a safety perspective.
Okay.
But usually for us, the more people can see, the better.
And what do you do during a harvest? What would a task that
What
would
was it that you fell in love with? Because that's hard freaking work.
Yeah. I think as an intern harvest is very different than a winemaker harvest, is what I'll very clearly outline. But I would say, an intern harvest is you show up that morning, you basically are kind of given a rough idea of what's happening that day, meaning are grapes coming in? What grapes? Does that mean they're whites? So you're going to be on pressing immediately. Are reds coming in? So you're going to be sorting. Are you cleaning tanks all day? And then from there, what's fascinating is there's typically a protocol of like grapes arrive, they go through this process, this and that. And so you have an idea, but sometimes things change, more stuff is picked. And so you have to be very adaptable. You have to be able to kind of shift. And to me, that was the fun of it. I think that something could be totally different. And then you would have fruit, that might, be a small scrape that we ended up picking. So it's going into barrel ferments, or say it was a heavy mildew year. So we had to, change up the protocol with how much sulfur we were adding or things like that. There was just something that you had to be so on your toes that I really appreciate.
Like running a restaurant sounds
100% like running a They're very similar in a lot of ways, actually.
So you actually, so you're around that, learning about the whole craft of winemaking and seeing it go down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's fabulous. And then, and I will say then, about 90% of your day is cleaning, which in a lot of ways can be very therapeutic, just spraying stuff down, I will say, with no, not caring where the water goes to a certain extent. And then the best part is at the end of the day, no matter what's happened, whether you've been yelled at, you mess something up, everyone sits around, talks about the day and has a beer. It's this very beautiful family, and then you do it all again the next day.
So then you end up in France, I think, during the same.
So I went from New Zealand, then I ended up at Literai, and then I ended up at Rudd in 2012. But then I took a small little detour in 2016 and went over to France for harvest, which was there are no words.
Now at Rudd, we're going to take a quick break, but you run into an old childhood friend.
Yes,
I do. This is going to be brilliant.
Okay, wait. Stay tuned, people. We'll be back.
If you want to know more about Inside the Bunghole, join us on all our social media platforms. You can get a revisit and view all the latest posts, giveaways, and information on this podcast. Simply search Inside the Bunghole on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. Like, share, and subscribe. Leave a comment. We would love to hear from you. Or you can email us at insidethebunghole@gmail.com. Thanks for tuning in, and visit our website at insidethebunghole.buzzsprout.com, where you can always find our latest podcast and past episodes. Cheers!
Well, welcome back after the break.
That was fast.
So fast.
Almost like it didn't happen.
I know. That's because we're having so much fun.
So you were crushing, you were racking, you were cleaning bungholes, you were just doing it. And then what happens with Rudd, and you're back kind of in your home neck of the woods in a way?
Yeah, I had realized after the 3 harvest experiences I had that I hadn't really done a true Napa Valley Cabernet Sauvignon harvest. And on my resume, it felt like the right thing to do. And so I had reached out to a couple friends that I knew were either in the area or were in the process of kind of moving back. And Samantha Rudd and I had grown up together, and we were kind of talking about, what we were going to do. And she had at that time finished up her harvest at Spotswood, and I was kind of throwing out names of where to work. And she's like, well, would it be weird if you just worked at Rudd? And I was like, well, of course it'd be weird. I've known you and your family forever. I feel like, she's like, but just do it. And so I actually,
Weird or not.
weird or not. And so I actually had a conversation with the winemaker at the time, and we kind of discussed, just, the logistics of knowing the family and Samantha, and that it would be a real internship, not just, something where I could float in for a couple hours and leave. It would be, and I should have known when Sam kind of referenced it that it was going to really stick with me, because not only was it family owned, but they owned all their own vineyards as well, which was something that I hadn't fully experienced yet. Some of the properties I had worked with had owned land, but to actually be fully in control of the farming all the way through the winemaking process was going to be completely new for me.
Yeah, and a great aspect that you hadn't had before.
Her father was a winemaker. Is she a winemaker?
So her father actually, funny enough, if you had asked him back then, he would say he knew nothing about wine. And so he came from the distribution business. His father actually made whiskey barrels. And so he had always been in the beverage industry, mostly in restaurants. He had always dreamed of owning a winery, as most people, do.
Oh, yes.
And Samantha always knew she was going to take over the winery. She's one of the few people, you don't know a lot of kids who are like, I want to make wine, or I want to own a winery. It's, usually I want to be an astronaut or something like that. But she had been doing harvest as well, learning the full process. And at that point, she was doing the business side. I want to say like the negociant. She had done a harvest in France and was learning that aspect.
How is it when a winery owns their own grapes? Do you pivot all the time on how you farm, or because you're so there all the time touching in them and making adjustments?
Yeah,
What's the difference between that and like a corporate place?
Yeah, you definitely have more freedom when you own your own vineyard. I will say also, since we have our own vineyard team, that's a whole nother element, that you're not relying on a farm labor company to come in, and you're basically asking people to do something, and you're kind of hoping they do it to the degree of what you want. And you're obviously at the mercy of, who showed up that day for work, or, what the weather was, or what they have time for, what the cost of something is. When you own everything, you can be almost to a fault, probably too OCD, in that you're out there kind of saying, oh, I actually want, instead of 2 clusters per shoot, I want 1 cluster per shoot, or I want the canopy only opened up X amount, on the Malbec versus the Petit Verdot. So it can make you crazy, but the attention to detail is, you really hit a different level for sure.
So Rudd are they 100% estate?
100% estate.
Wow, very, very nice. So you are one well-rounded little bitch, aren't you?
I am well-rounded in a lot of ways. Now that you say that, with all the wine and food I enjoy.
But yeah, you guys hanging out there when you were kids, like Barbie doll age?
Yeah, but less Barbie dolls and more trying to find the keys to the gator and driving around, probably messing things up.
Right.
Yeah, so it's much harder for me to be mad at Samantha's kids when I see them doing it, because I did this, or jumping in the fountain. They're all the things we did.
So tell me about being in Rudd, how you climbed up and moved on there. You first came in as...
Definitely as an intern, and then, there was a winemaker shift after harvest in 2012. Frederick Ammons joined us, and he, at the time, there hadn't been a permanent cellar position available until Frederick showed up. And he was like, if you want, you could basically shift between the cellar and hospitality and just kind of help out. And so I was kind of a cellar rat and also hospitality, which in my opinion, everyone should have to learn about the hospitality side. It should be non-negotiable, but it was wonderful because I got to, kind of enjoy both sides. And then I think in 2014, they officially gave me a full-time position in the cellar. I want to say maybe 2015, I became what's called the enologist, which is really just kind of taking on a little bit more lab work. And then 2017, when I came back from France, I officially became the assistant winemaker. And then my mentor there, Frederick Ammons, he left in probably after the 2020 vintage, I would say, and started doing his own kind of consulting thing. And so I assumed they would hire a winemaker to come in, and they reached out to me and asked if I would be interested, and I melted. I couldn't believe I was going to have the opportunity not only to stay at Rudd, but also to be actually making decisions.
Yeah.
Not that I wanted to change anything, but just that it felt finally like a full circle.
Were
For
you
the major leagues.
were you ready for it, or going, or freaked out deep down, going, really, me?
I mean, freaked out for sure initially, but then when I got actually when like harvest rolls around, I mean, you something switches. You're just in go mode, and you realize everything you've been doing over the years, even the stuff that didn't make sense to you, is all starting to click into place, you know. And I think not a lot of people get to be at a place for as long as I had been before taking that position. And so I felt like I had you'd really like done everything from cleaning drains and could really appreciate the process to where I was now.
It's sort of like being the dishwasher.
Exactly.
And those are the best people to run a restaurant because they know everything.
Oh yeah. And I still have to clean drains occasionally. And I think it's very humbling. You still have to,
Yeah.
It's also never a bad thing to show people that you're willing to get your hands dirty and
Yes.
everything,
100%.
because then they're going to follow you to the ends of the earth.
Yeah.
Well, you're all in it together
Yeah.
at that point. And again,
Teamwork.
it's teamwork. And that's what had really stuck with me from the beginning, and to still kind of see it happening. It felt, again, never regretted not becoming a lawyer, but it really felt like I made the right choice. Yeah.
Well, tell me a little bit about your philosophy with biodynamics. Ooh, yeah. So what didn't be nerdy doing it? I know. Okay.
Biodynamics. Go
Starts.
dancing under the moon, on a fruit day and bearing horns. No, I mean, I had absolutely incredible experience working for Ted Lemon at Literati, who was my introduction to not only biodynamics, but just a different way of thinking about farming and what it really means in terms of the final product that you produce. And so what I really appreciated about Ted's philosophy on biodynamics was, for those that don't know, the Steiner program really talks almost in a way like the almanac, Farmer's Almanac, where you're really following the season, the moon, the tides, everything, and how the earth is actually almost in a way exhaling and inhaling. And so when to put effort into the ground versus the canopy, and so on and so forth. And so it can get very, out there in a lot of ways. But I think the core of it is that you're really thinking about your property as its own unique ecosystem, and what can I do within my ecosystem to help it flourish without looking at outside chemicals or components or fertilizers or things to kind of enhance. And so you're really looking at, everything from using, you know, horsetail during like the warm summer months, or using calendula that you've dried out to kind of, help incorporate more, I would say, nutrients into the canopy. Or you're looking at manure and again, letting it kind of decompose in the cow horns, and then again, creating your own kind of compost type of situation. So hippy dippy, so hippie.
But that's brilliant. It's heady.
It's beautiful though, and it is the earth, the world taking care of itself, and
Plus,
you just saying, I'm going to incorporate a little bit of Mother Nature here to influence here.
with pollination and with a lot of factors that,
Oh yeah. And there are things that, I mean, it's wild that, you can, and a lot of times people will ask, like, can you taste the difference between a biodynamic wine and a non-biodynamic wine? And I can say that I don't think it's necessarily like, there's a clear, this wine tastes different, but I do think there's an energy. I think there's a freshness. I do think the vineyard, it breathes better that way, which then translates into the fruit. And so I do feel like there's a lift or like an intention with the wines versus maybe more of the conventionally ones that feel a little heavier sometimes when we've done comparative tastings.
did corking change with this also, this philosophy? Did certain buys of different barreling ever change, or no?
There are people who actually follow like even the calendar into the cellar, and they'll only rack on, certain days, or, they'll only bottle on fruit days versus blackout dates. And I will say something I appreciated about Ted, who in a lot of ways is Mr. Biodynamics in the US, if not in California, is that there are just realities of farming and you can't plan everything. And so there are days that we'll taste and we'll be like, we only want to taste on fruit days because that's when the wine tastes best. But guess what? We are going to taste sometimes on a blackout day, on a late day.
Especially when you're getting close to the picking.
We're not going to change bottling or harvest picks because the calendar
Some people go as crazy as playing a certain frequency on the farm.
Oh yeah.
I mean, yes.
And I appreciate it. I love it.
But hey, 423 megahertz. Say that's my
32.
432.
Yeah.
Oh, close enough.
Close enough. Potato, potato.
It'll still make you get asleep if you listen to it long enough.
So what was it like working with Ted Lemon and his?
He's amazing. It's to dig into that brain is just, wild. And I think in a lot of ways I appreciated his philosophy because it wasn't necessarily dogmatic, which I think, to me is very refreshing that you follow this guideline, but you really feel and for someone who has worked, with a lot of different properties and Burgundy, but to have your own, and he also purchased fruit. So like he really had to work to feel that the grapes he were buying were worthy enough of his endeavor. And so to me, it was fabulous. One funny story with Ted, I will say that just gives you another peek into the brain, was they had geese that ran around the property. Their home was there. And where we parked wasn't far, but you had to walk down this gravel road to the winery, and the geese always hung out, by the cars. And I don't personally love geese in general. I find them very feisty. Foie gras, I am a supporter. I apologize to any listeners who are anti that, but it's delicious. But they would chase me from the car. I was literally run. Well, probably. And so one day I told Ted, I was just like, these geese, like, I can't get over it. They don't chase everyone. Like they and he's like, well, they don't respect you, and just walked away.
Wow.
And so, getting left with like that little, it just your brain is just like, they don't respect, so anywho, but yeah, just, there were so many. So that just gives you his humor was incredible. His philosophy, everything, and you have to have a good sense of humor.
Well, let's take another quick break, and then we'll come back, find out how to, all about the winery and tasting rooms.
Yeah, I want to talk about the whole portfolio of wines that you're making.
Yes.
For sure.
Okay, we'll be right back.
If you want to know more about Inside the Bunghole, join us on all our social media platforms. You can get a revisit and view all the latest posts, giveaways, and information on this podcast. Simply search Inside the Bunghole on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. Like, share, and subscribe. Leave a comment. We would love to hear from you. Or you can email us at insidethebunghole@gmail.com. Thanks for tuning in, and visit our website at insidethebunghole.buzzsprout.com, where you can always find our latest podcast and past episodes. Cheers!
Okay, we're back.
We're back with Ted Lemon. No.
He just showed up. I did. You look different, Ted.
So James, you were just saying, let's talk about the portfolio. What do you
growing? What are you making? Anything you want to try and stab at, maybe?
Yeah, for me, what I like about Rudd is I work with property in East Oakville. We have about 46 acres there, and then we also have about 14 acres planted on Mount Beater. So I'm basically working on two different sides of the valley as well. So you have East Oakville fruit, and then I have Mount Beater 1,600-foot elevation fruit, which from a winemaking perspective is just too much fun because I'm working with essentially valley floor and mountain tannin, acid differences, fruit, even the same varieties, but totally different expressions. The Rudd wines that we have, our flagship is the Oakville Estate Red, which is a blend that I create to really kind of best showcase what the vintage captured that year. We have our 100% Samantha's Cab, named after Leslie Rudd's daughter. And then we make our Sauvignon Blanc, which comes from Mount Beater as well, and a Leslie's Blend, which was a Mount Beater red homage for Samantha's father. And then we have the Crossroads, which is our second label, entry-level companion label that we do as well. And so under Crossroads, I get to have a little bit more inventive, creative fun. I make everything from a Ribolla Gialla to a Cab Franc to a mountain blend, a Semillon, really to just kind of explore what the properties are capable of.
And what do you envision as far as if you were to be able to just play in the sandbox, what kind of grapes or what kind of technique or what would your jam be?
Cold duck.
Yes. Bug 2020. Frenemy blows, getting as close as possible.
Yep.
No, I think, what we've done at Rudd really well is and thanks to Leslie Rudd, our founder, who really was open to trying anything. I don't know a lot of people who take, Cabernet Sauvignon on Mount Veeder and graft it to Ribolla Gialla, for example, or let us experiment, with, you know, 100% Semillons that are 11% alcohol. And so I was really set up for success, and that, we were given kind of this opportunity to explore and play. That being said, the things that I'm more kind of interested in changing are a little bit more related to kind of climactic events, weather changes, different clones, root stocks, row orientation, really making sure that the farming is kind of at its highest potential. I'm lucky I work with, 30-plus-year-old vines, but the reality is at some point, and hopefully it's 20, 30 more years, they will need to get replanted. And so coming up even with a 50-year replant plan is kind of focusing on the farming really right now.
So when you say you want something that it's going to be sustainable with the global warming, that means you will have to replant something with stronger roots or thicker.
Yeah, more drought tolerant rootstock, things like that. Even the row orientation, rather than running, north to south, we can angle it, a little bit so that there's actually more shade happening. I would say that the vines are helping each other a bit more. Different cover crops, not tilling the soil as much. I think, we're only kind of scratching the surface in Napa of what, the true potential is. And I know there's a lot of people that are doing a fabulous job of trying out other grape varieties, more Rhone style or things like that. I think, down the road we might be there, but for now I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that, based on what we know, Cabernet Sauvignon is like the right thing for our neighborhood, and to really kind of
You got it.
focus
So
on.
you're listening to the land.
Yes.
And if the land tells you this is what's going to really thrive here and make beautiful wine, that's what you're planting.
Exactly.
Maybe it's not your favorite, but you're going to make it the best with this, this style.
Yeah. I love Pinot Noir, I love Riesling, but I can't plant it in Oakville, it won't survive, so I'd be shooting myself in the foot. And to me, I think wine can be very trendy. I think it can, don't get me started on the Merlot sideways thing, but, I think really making sure that you're doing, like you're saying, what's true to the land versus my personal choices.
Well, that's crazy. I love this whole biodynamic movement, because it is gonna, by its very nature, gonna grow better grapes.
Exactly.
So tell me about the winery. How do we get in touch with you? The wine club, all that good stuff.
So we are lucky that we have a very strong, dedicated mailing list. We're about 80% direct to consumer, and the rest is out in wholesale. But we have what we call a couple times a year, we do a release, and it's an opportunity to purchase the Rudd wines, which everyone on the allocation list has that opportunity, which you can join at any point. And then with Crossroads, you can buy those at any time you want online. And then with regards to visiting, mailing list customers can come, set up an appointment. We are small. There's only, I think 12 of us that work on the property. So we are limited in how many people we can see. But setting it up in advance, you get a beautiful kind of walk through the vineyard and then a full tasting of the wines. On Crossroads, we just started something very fun and cool and hip called the Crossroads House, where you actually can do a much more, I would say, casual, quick version of tasting of the Crossroad wines. And so it's, again, where you can taste maybe different things like the Semillon, or you can taste the Ribolla, or you can taste, our Cab Franc, which you wouldn't normally taste in the Rudd experience. And so I think the wine industry is at a very interesting intersection of where are we going, and making it more available to people who it's not just one type of tasting, or it's not just one type of wine, but encouraging new palates and new tastes.
Yeah. Is there a restaurant in there?
So we don't have one at Rudd.
Yeah.
So Samantha Rudd has a fabulous restaurant called Press, which is in Yainalina.
Okay, that's
Michelin star, absolutely incredible. Unfortunately, you don't get to eat that at Rudd, but it is down the road.
I'm sure that you sometimes do like pairings
Oh, yeah.
restaurant with your product.
Oh, yeah. We've done fabulous dinners and events. And I mean, I'm a big supporter of wine. The way I grew up, wine was with food. Obviously, there's times we've all been there, chill it and kill it on a patio, a great bottle of rosé or something like that. But to me, to really understand our wines with food is the best way possible.
I agree.
Yes.
Okay.
So if we were to, is everything under the cloak of or website Rudd?
And everywhere that will take you, down the rabbit hole of everything else. You can do Rudd or Crossroads, either way, and you'll find
You'll
that.
find it.
Yeah.
You'll find it.
Well, thanks for jumping in our bunghole.
Oh my God, I have
Oh,
to.
oh, right. She has a bunghole.
Oh my goodness.
Does it have to do with Ted Lemon?
I get to travel around and help sell the wine, which is, I think all winemakers should have to do that again too. It's such a fun experience and to connect with people. But in my trips to Ohio, I have a favorite sales rep and manager that I've worked with forever. And he sent me a hat that says, "Show me that bunghole." And when I saw the guy, I almost died because it's the funniest word. I don't think you can ever not laugh and say that. So it's a good reminder with the hat that's bright yellow trucker hat with "Show me your bunghole."
You can't say bunghole with a frown.
I don't think, and again, let's bring some more levity into the wine industry.
When they came up with the name, they were like Beavis and Butthead.
I love it, actually. No, to me, again, it's a constant reminder that wine is fun.
It is.
It's with people and it's enjoyable and it's, we need to remember that a lot.
We need to put a thief in that bunghole.
Oh my God, it can't stop. I love it so much. Oh, well, thank you so much for coming out and visiting with us. And we can't wait to come up and visit you.
I can't wait for you to come by me.
Yes, and we will. And we'll bring Irma. We'll bring Adamon.
Yes.
And we'll bring our livers.
Yes, please do. They're important.
Okay, well, we will be back next month with another fun adventure in the bunghole. And thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
If you want to know more about Inside the Bunghole, join us on all our social media platforms. You can get a revisit and view all the latest posts, giveaways, and information on this podcast. Simply search Inside the Bunghole on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. Like, share, and subscribe. Leave a comment. We would love to hear from you. Or you can email us at insidethebunghole@gmail.com. Thanks for tuning in and visit our website at insidethebunghole.buzzsprout.com, where you can always find our latest podcast and past episodes. Cheers!